Got this from CBS News. Pritzker says Trump administration seeking to deploy 100 troops to protect ICE in Illinois. So it's not just the ICE agents with these ongoing riots, but now National Guard will be protecting them. Governor Pritzker on Monday said his administration has learned the Trump administration is seeking to deploy 100 troops in Illinois following the deployment of armed federal agents in downtown Chicago over the weekend and multiple clashes between protesters and ICE agents in the West suburban Broadview in recent weeks. Pritzker said the Illinois National Guard has learned the Department of Homeland Security sent a memo to the Pentagon requesting the deployment of 100 military troops in Illinois to protect ICE personnel and facilities. The governor's office said it's unclear if those troops would be Illinois National Guard members from other states, or active duty military troops. Quote, "What I have warned of is now being realized. One thing is clear. None of what Trump is doing is making Illinois safer. This is an attack on neighborhoods, on lawful residents, on U.S. citizens. That's not preventing crime, as Donald Trump claims. That's threatening public safety. But as I've said many times, for Donald Trump and the MAGAs in Congress, this is not about fighting crime or about public safety. This is about sowing fear and intimidation and division among Americans. It was about creating a pretext to send armed military troops in our communities. This is about consolidating power in Donald Trump's hands." Oh boy, I love this because I'm from Chicago and I can tell you he's lying. The Democrats have controlled Chicago for over 100 years and they have never solved the problem of crime. All they do is bulldoze these crime-ridden neighborhoods and relocate these families and these affected communities into other areas. So I say this, I see a video, and I'll tell you, it's a rock and a hard place that I'm not going to be happy about, but I see a video of ICE agents, CBP, or National Guard walking around Chicago. And my attitude is, oh, thank God. I see these guys. You know what your worst case scenario is? I know, Luke, you're going to have a heart attack over this one. You're going to be walking down the street, and there's going to be a National Guard guy, and he's going to go, "Excuse me, sir, you got a second? Can I see some ID real quick?"
No.
And
I plead the fifth.
And exactly. Yeah. And I mentioned this, that maybe 20 years ago I'd have been like, I don't got to give you my ID. What is this all about? Maybe not even, to be completely honest. Because now, you know what my response is? I'll be like, is something going on? Yeah, sure, here's my ID. I appreciate that you guys are here. It's been crazy. Where I grew up in my neighborhood, if I had National Guard at the park and they said, "You have an ID," I'd be like, "No, I'm 16. And they'd be like, "What are you doing?" "I'm hanging out with my friends." That's probably the end of it. The alternative is roving bands of gangbangers and people getting mugged, robbed, getting shot for no reason. There are some areas in Chicago where gangs, you have to join the gang if you live in their turf. So you're 13, they say join the gang. And how do you join the gang? You kill somebody. This stuff has to stop. And when Pritzker says there's no problem, we don't need this, 100 years, and they've never solved these problems, I will take anything I can get.
So Al Sharpton is actually calling this action by Trump racist because he says Trump is targeting blacks when he's doing this. So I think what happened in Washington, D.C. is kind of an example of where this is going. I mean, this is kind of a slow creek. I'm not a big fan of the military being on streets, but really we have to look at what happened in Washington, D.C. There wasn't any kind of major violations of people's civil liberties. It was just people kind of walking around here. People still have their constitutional rights. And for me, the perfect solution, I mean, obviously you picked up this dichotomy of like, okay, do you want the gangbanger there? Or do you want the National Guardsman there? Who do you want on the street corner? Who do you feel safer by? Obviously, the average sane, rational person is going to want to have the military there. But I think the perfect response is to allow people to defend themselves. I think there's a way to do this without using our tax dollars, using our military, and that's just allowing concealed carry federally. I know Trump has talked about that, and I would love to have people to be able to stand up to criminals and give them a fair chance to actually defend themselves, which they don't in Chicago.
But you know what happens in Chicago? You get arrested.
Exactly.
That's the
exactly.
problem.
I think if we're going to unwind this problem, that would be a kind of more federal way to do it, especially if you allow federal concealed carry, which I think is
Field of Greens from Brickhouse Nutrition. Definitely check this out. I know we all have two ages, our actual age and our body's internal biological age. What I didn't know is I've likely lowered my biological age without even knowing it, because you get this Field of Greens. It's got all the vegetables and everything. You mix it right into a drink. Tastes great, by the way. Here's the thing. Because Americans eat so many processed foods and not enough fruits and veggies, many, perhaps most, are 10 plus years older on the inside than their actual age, and they are ticking time bombs. Yikes. A major university study suggests how to slow aging and diffuse that biological time bomb. Participants slowed their aging by drinking Field of Greens. That's all. They didn't change their eating, drinking, or exercise, just Field of Greens. Each fruit and vegetable in Field of Greens was doctor selected for specific health benefits: cell health, heart, lungs, kidneys, metabolism, even healthy weight. I feel great knowing Field of Greens can slow how quickly I'm aging, especially because you guys have made comments about the white in my beard. I can't do anything about it. And I encourage you to join me. Swap your untested fruit, vegetable, or green drink for Field of Greens while there's time. Check out the university study and get 20% off when you use promo code TIM at fieldofgreens.com. That's fieldofgreens.com, promo code TIM.
The most important issue right now. And then we won't have to waste National Guard troops. We won't have to spend tax dollars. And people are able to understand, hey, if you commit a crime, there's going to be people who are going to stand up to you and fight back. That right there is the biggest difference that is going to change things and respect people's civil liberties at the same time.
Now, I know Andrew is shocked by this development.
I loved it. I totally loved it. Let me hear. I couldn't even remember her name. I had to look it up. Remember when the rep LaMonica McIver? She's like body checked. She's like a linebacker going in there. She punched.
Well,
she assaulted. That much is true, right? She assaulted, federal law enforcement. That's what this is. And so, all of this goes back to the fact that blue jurisdictions are unwilling or unable to protect federal law enforcement that are in these cities. And so, if they would just simply cooperate, if they would shut down these protests on their own, then Trump and the federal government would not have to send in additional troops.
I'm gonna push on that language a little bit. They're not protests, and I know that we have
riots. They're assaults. Right. They're domestic violent terrorism. I'm good using all those words. I'm good using all of it.
I don't mean that to come down on you, but I think the people on the right, or whatever you want to describe the faction, the pro-America faction.
Yeah, this team sanity.
Has this tendency to often use the language that the corporate press will use.
That's a fine pushback. I mean, because listen, I just lived through my friend, experiencing extreme violence. And obviously, this ratcheting up of this violent rhetoric, this violent, you could see how radicalized young liberals have become in this country. 30% of them or more believe that violence is somehow justifiable to advance a political agenda. We have to figure out this problem on that side, but we have to be honest about the fact that it's coming from people like LaMonica McIver, and what's coming from Democrat leaders. They are looking the other way. They're essentially tacitly endorsing these strategies. And yeah, I love what Trump did with Antifa. I love that we're starting to take this stuff seriously and be like, these are domestic extremists, these are domestic terrorists, right? And they're actually doing violence, and we have to clamp down on it.
Isn't it wild that for the longest time we have tolerated these people showing up to various law enforcement agencies, and this is for 20 years or longer, and they physically attack vehicles, and I'm sitting here thinking, like, these liberals are going out screaming, "But my free speech." And I'm like, whoa, hold on a minute. Free speech was never about you surrounding an ICE vehicle and banging on it and screaming. Free speech was you stood across the street from the gate holding up signs and using that to generate attention. There's a degree of civil disobedience we tolerate, like linking arms. The cops come and then they break you up. Yeah. They take you out. You get a civil infraction of some sort. But we're supposed to tolerate now these people physically attacking cops. And I'm like, no. The line has been crossed, okay? If you're going to go out and you're going to wave your little sign in the air and you are going to rally people and march down the street, I'm not even a guy who thinks you need a permit for that. That's fine. You want to march down the street? Okay. But when you physically attack cops, lock them up.
Well, the tolerance is expected of conservatives at every level. And that's why this is so important with the National Guard deployment. Because these cities, it's beyond inaction. When you're basically telling your citizens, I hate you, when you refuse to enforce crime for as long as it's been going on. So conservatives have been expected to tolerate violence at every level, just from the street corner all the way to political assassinations for decades now. And so it's like, now that the Trump administration is actually just stepping in and lobbying on behalf of well-meaning citizens, they perceive that as this huge authoritarian crackdown.
Yeah, but it feels to me like more deliberate and sinister than that. They are intentionally not protecting ICE officers.
Right.
This goes back to kind of when the raids were happening in LA, and it was the national news, right? Karen Bass is saying, you don't need to do this. Gavin Newsom making it this opportunity to take advantage politically. So, but the point is, all that they would need to do to stop that, it's very clear. When you get a criminal that happens to be an illegal alien and there's an ICE detainer on him, hand him over. But when you can't do that, guess what ICE has to do? They have to go out into the community and round these people up. So that is an intentional act of provocation by the local government, by Democrat cities and governors to say, we're not going to play ball the safe way. But how much more safe is it to hand somebody over that's already in custody? No, they're going to make you go out into the community and get these people. And guess what happens when that? People get hurt. People get killed. And so it's an intentional provocation. The blood is on their hands. And so, yeah, we need to ratchet it up. And Trump's absolutely right for sending in these troops.
Here's the challenge we face. The right has too long misunderstood the intentions of the left.
Yes.
A great example is this story from the New York Post earlier. Zohran Mamdani pledges $100 million in free legal defense. And by free, I mean they take it from you, taxpayer. Free legal defenses for illegal immigrants in New York when he wins. That means you as an American citizen will do labor. The city will take a portion of that and fund people who are not citizens of this country.
No, that aren't even legally here.
Exactly. Not even legally here. And he said, and he says in his campaign, that he's going to defend his community. People need to understand when they say our democracy or our community, and then they go on to explain, they're talking about non-citizens, people who don't live in this country. They are telling us, you are not who we are talking about. You are not our community. But the problem is, for the longest time, the right has believed that the left was talking about a country with all of us together when they've been talking about isolating us and breaking us down and destroying what we want and what we believe in this country. So the challenge we face now, as you mentioned, why won't they turn these illegal immigrants over? That would be like, imagine if the UK filed an extradition, a warrant on Luke for Luke's speech. Well, we're not going to turn over a U.S. citizen to the UK. That's how the Democrats feel about their illegal immigrants. It's like turning over a citizen of their country to a foreign nation. That's how they're treating it.
Yeah, I agree with that. But and by the way, you're totally right, isolating the fact that we have assumed that they are operating in good faith when they're not. And secondly, I would say, though, that they are even, it's like when I say it's more sinister than that, it's because they're looking at it as a political advantageous move to provoke the action. And then when Trump takes the action, then they say, oh, it's the end of democracy. No, it's like, no, you are literally defying federal law. You are refusing to cooperate. And by the way, the fact that there's any legal protection for a sanctuary city to begin with boggles the mind. And there are legal protections. There is case law and all this stuff, which is a problem. We need to dismantle it because it fundamentally erodes the strength of the federal government and the ability for us to govern the entirety of this country. You essentially have these little outposts of rogue states that, we just call them Karen Bass. Yeah.
I'll give it to them. It is destroying democracy. We're a constitutional republic. They are a multicultural democracy. That's how Stephen Marsh described it. And as much as he said he favors the multicultural democracy, I think he's correct. They have created a multicultural democracy that is trying to supplant our constitutional republic. So when they look at what Trump is doing, what we are doing, what Americans believe in and want for their country, electing Trump with a popular vote, and they say, oh no, our democracy is threatened. Yeah, they're speaking the language of the left. They're saying our invasive system is under threat. Yeah, they're right.
Well, a lot of the corruption comes top down, not just from the George Soros district attorneys, but also police officers. I mean, from my experiences being at the Battle of Berkeley, being in Portland, Tim, you were there too for a lot of those kind of on-the-ground protest movements. There was incidences where the left created an illegal action, violated someone's personal property or injured someone, and the cops just kind of stood there like, okay, we're not going to do anything. So when we look at that type of lawlessness, again, I have to go back to constitutional carry. I have to go back to individuals understanding that the solution is going to be on an individual level, because I feel like we're just trying to outbeat each other with big government. I don't want big government, but at the same time, the problem that you guys are addressing is very severe, is very real. And we're not talking about thousands of troops. We're not talking about martial law. We're talking about, what was it, 100, 200 troops that are also there? Yeah. So I understand that argument as well.
And by the way, another thing that boggles the mind here is you look at, there's a crazy stat that people don't know about DC. And I don't know the stats about Chicago, but I'm assuming they're just as stark, if not more. In DC, from 2018 until Trump deployed, took over law enforcement in District of Columbia, there was like 1,200 murders from 2018 until 2025. Guess how many of those murders were white? Any idea?
Was it most of them?
No, like the people that were murdered, 1,200. How many of them were white? 11.
Wow.
11. That means that
I knew it was going to be a big number or a small number.
Yeah, 11. So Trump comes in, takes over law enforcement. There was a lot of the tweets you were seeing for a while were like, no murders for this much, which, by the way, in the height of the summer was truly remarkable, right? Because that's killing season. The summer is killing season. There wasn't any murders. And then we finally had one, right? But what the left says is that they're for the people of color, they're for the disenfranchised, the marginalized, all this stuff. Well, Trump's the one out here saving black lives. You look at the Ferguson effect. You look at George Floyd effect. This is the lack of law enforcement in the communities that need it most results in all of these dead black and brown kids.
You know what's going to happen though? Let's do a countdown to when the news with the number of black people dying going way down under Trump's rule. What they're going to say now is number of white people killed in D.C. explodes by 2,398%.
No, you're probably right.
Because it's like from
proportional,
one to,
yeah,
exactly.
But they don't understand statistics or per capita, right?
They can frame it that way.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.